The night before my baby shower, my mother-in-law told me to know my place, since poor girls should sit quietly in the corner. The next morning, she raised her champagne glass and called me a charity case in front of 40 guests, not knowing the $51 million patent sale notification was already lighting up my phone. I just smiled, letting them dig their graves deeper. When the cake was cut and I opened the last gift box containing my licensing agreement, the entire room fell silent. My name is Eliza Hart, and at 32 years old, 34 weeks pregnant, I stood in my mother-in-law's Cherry Creek mansion watching her orchestrate my humiliation like a conductor leading a symphony of contempt. The living room suffocated under pastel balloons and vanilla-scented candles, their sweetness unable to mask the bitter tang of judgment that hung in the air. Ruth Calloway glided between her guests, her Botoxed face frozen in a smile that never reached her eyes, while the silver spoons clinked against china teacups like tiny bells announcing my execution. Eliza, darling. Ruth's voice cut through the chatter, sharp as the Waterford crystal she insisted on using for a baby shower. Come tell everyone how grateful you are that the Calloway family has taken such good care of you. My husband Tyler stood by the French doors, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to hear his mother's barb. 6 feet of cowardice in a Brooks Brothers shirt, the same man who'd whispered in bed last night that I should just go along with whatever Mom wants for the shower. I placed my hand on my swollen belly, feeling my daughter kick a tiny rebellion against the suffocation. I'm grateful for everyone who came today, I said, my voice steady despite the fire burning in my chest. Oh, she's so diplomatic. Ruth laughed, turning to her friend Margaret. Well, when Tyler was with Victoria, you remember Victoria, don't you? The Pemberton heiress we never had to explain anything, but Eliza here, bless her heart, she tries so hard despite her circumstances. The room tittered. 40 women in designer dresses, sipping champagne I couldn't drink, eating canapes that cost more than my old apartment's rent, all while dissecting me like a specimen under their manicured microscope. Speaking of circumstances, Ruth continued, her voice honeyed poison, we've set up a little donation box for Eliza's diaper fund. Every penny helps when you're starting from scratch. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't need to look. I knew what it was. The wire confirmation from Northbridge Therapeutics. $51 million for the exclusive licensing rights to my blood oxygen sensor technology. 6 months of secret negotiations while Ruth called me a burden and Tyler suggested I should be more appreciative. That's so thoughtful, Ruth, I said, my smile a mask I'd perfected over 2 years of marriage. You've always been so concerned about money. Well, someone has to be practical, she sniffed, adjusting her tennis bracelet, the one she'd shown off at 3 different dinners, always mentioning its price. When you come from nothing, you can't understand the responsibility of maintaining a certain standard. Margaret leaned forward, her voice a stage whisper meant to carry. It must be so difficult. Ruth, seeing Tyler go from someone like Victoria to, well, we all make mistakes. Ruth sighed dramatically. But family supports family, even when they marry beneath them. Tyler finally looked up from his phone, his jaw tightening, but he said nothing. Just like when his mother had suggested I sign a postnuptial agreement last month. Just like when she'd asked if my little hobby in the garage was worth neglecting my wifely duties. You know, Ruth continued, addressing the room now, I told Tyler, son, love is lovely, but bills don't pay themselves. The poor girl didn't even have a proper career when they met. Some little job at a medical company that let her go. She turned to me with mock sympathy. What was it called again? Dear Silver something. Silver Lark MedTech, I replied, my voice ice. I was their lead R&D engineer. Engineer, Ruth repeated, making it sound like a dirty word. Well, we can't all marry engineers, can we, ladies? Someone has to marry the help. The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. My phone buzzed again. Marin, my lawyer. confirming the patent assignment was filed with the USPTO at 9:07 a.m., just as Ruth was arranging her charity auction for my benefit. Now, Ruth clapped her hands. Let's play a little game. Everyone guess how much Eliza's hospital bill will be, and we'll see if our donations can cover it. I'll start without insurance. I'd say at least $30,000. I have insurance, I said quietly. Of course you do. Now. Ruth smiled. Thanks to Tyler's family connections. Where would you be without us? Exactly $51 million richer. I thought, my hand finding my phone. The screen showed another notification the funds had cleared escrow. My daughter kicked again, harder this time, as if she knew her mother was about to flip the entire room upside down. But not yet. Let them dig deeper. Let Tyler show me exactly who he was when his mother held the shovel. Let Ruth reveal every ugly thought she'd harbored since I'd refused to sign my rights away. The cake waited on the sideboard, pristine white frosting with pink roses. Next to it, a pile of wrapped gifts, including one I'd placed there myself this morning, a simple white box containing the future Ruth could never buy her way into. Tyler. Ruth called to her son. Come tell everyone how you two met. I'm sure they'd love to hear how you found your little engineer. Tyler walked over slowly, his hand finding my lower back, a gesture that would have been comforting if it hadn't felt like an apology for what he wasn't saying. The truth about the Calloway family was written in spreadsheets, not the society pages Ruth loved to clip. I'd seen the numbers 3 months ago when Tyler left his laptop open. Maison Ruth, her boutique chain, was hemorrhaging money faster than she could borrow it. The irony of being called poor by a woman juggling credit lines wasn't lost on me. But I need to go back further, to when I still believed in Tyler's spine. Silver Lark MedTech had been my world for 6 years. I'd joined straight from MIT, eager to build something that mattered. My specialty was biosensors specifically, non-invasive monitoring for vulnerable populations. When I started developing a revolutionary blood oxygen sensor for premature infants, something that could prevent SIDS without a single wire touching their fragile skin, I thought I'd found my life's work. Then I got pregnant. The timing was unfortunate. Tyler and I had only been married 8 months. The company was facing FDA delays. Investors were nervous. And when layoffs came, the pregnant engineer was first to go. Budget constraints, they said, though they hired 2 junior developers the next week. Tyler had been supportive. Initially, take time to figure out your next move, he'd said, rubbing my still flat stomach. Mom knows people. She can help. Ruth's version of help was suggesting I become a boutique manager at one of her stores. It's more suitable for a mother, she'd said over lunch at the country club. Engineering is so masculine, and with a baby coming, you need stability. What she didn't know was that I'd already incorporated Brightnest Labs in Delaware, using our garage as a laboratory. While she planned dinner parties and complained about new money ruining Denver, I worked through the night, soldering circuits with ventilation fans running, testing prototypes on dolls that cried when you pressed their stomachs. The breakthrough came at 3:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd finally cracked the algorithm for reading oxygen saturation through skin pigmentation variables. The sensor could work on any baby, regardless of race, weight, or skin condition. It was elegant, non-invasive, and would cost less than $50 to manufacture at scale. That's when I met Maren O'Keefe from Westgate and Rowan, not through Tyler's connections or Ruth's society network, but through my MIT roommate who'd gone into patent law. Maren took one look at my prototype and said, "We need to protect this yesterday." "Can you afford my retainer?" she'd asked bluntly. "I have $18,000 in savings," I'd admitted. "That'll work for now. You'll pay me properly when Northbridge Therapeutics comes calling." She was right. Northbridge had been watching the infant monitoring space for years. When Maren quietly put out feelers, they bit hard, but we played it slow, careful. Every meeting was scheduled during Ruth's book club or Tyler's golf games. Every document was sent to a separate email address. Every call was taken in my car, parked at grocery stores where I supposedly spent hours shopping for Tyler's specific organic preferences. The negotiations intensified as my pregnancy progressed. Ruth's comments grew crueler as my belly grew rounder. "You're getting quite large," she'd observe. "Victoria did Pilates until her 9th month. Of course, she could afford the private instructor." Tyler started echoing his mother's concerns. "Maybe you should focus on the baby," he'd say when he caught me working late. "This garage project. It's not really going anywhere, is it?" 2 weeks ago, the pressure escalated. Ruth cornered me after Sunday dinner, Tyler conveniently in the bathroom. "I've had my lawyer draw up some papers," she said, sliding a folder across the table. A post-nuptial agreement, just to protect Tyler's interests. I read it in the kitchen while she watched. It was a masterpiece of legal theft. Any intellectual property I developed during the marriage would become community property, but Tyler would have sole decision-making power over its commercialization. There was also a clause about family business ventures having first right of refusal on any patents. "I don't understand," I'd said carefully. "Oh, it's simple," Ruth smiled. "If this little project of yours ever amounts to anything, it should benefit the family that's been supporting you. Tyler mentioned you've been tinkering with some medical device. Well, Maison Ruth is looking to expand into wellness products. This would give us first dibs, and if I don't sign," her smile tightened, "well, Tyler and I would have to reconsider the level of support we're providing. The health insurance, for instance, the car you're driving, the roof over your head." I'd taken the papers home, told Tyler I needed time to review them. He'd seemed relieved. "Just sign them, Eliza. It's not like your censor is going to make millions. Mom just wants to feel secure." That night, I'd called Marin from my car, parked at a 24-hour Walmart. "How quickly can we close with Northbridge? How quickly do you need it?" "Before I have this baby. And it needs to be bulletproof. Nothing Tyler or his mother can touch. Hart Family Trust it is. Irrevocable. You'll be the sole beneficiary and trustee. Tyler won't even know it exists unless you tell him." The next morning, I'd returned the unsigned postnup to Ruth with a smile. "I need my own lawyer to review it, just to understand everything." Her face had gone cold. "Lawyers are expensive, dear. Can you afford one? I'll figure it out." She'd laughed then. Actually laughed? "Oh, Eliza, you really don't understand how the world works, do you?" The deal structure was a thing of beauty, the kind of financial engineering that would make Ruth's country club accountant weep with envy. Marin had orchestrated it like a chess grandmaster setting up checkmate 20 moves ahead. $51 million up front, she'd explained during our clandestine meeting at a truck stop diner 40 miles outside Denver. That goes directly into escrow, then transfers to the Hart Family Trust upon closing. Northbridge gets exclusive licensing rights for North America, with milestone payments for FDA approval and European expansion. Royalties of 12% on net sales after the first $100 million in revenue. "And Tyler," I'd asked, my hand on my belly as the baby performed somersaults. "Can't touch a penny." The trust is irrevocable, established before any postnup could be signed. Colorado law is clear trusts established before marital agreements supersede them. Plus, there's a specific non-assignment clause. The patent rights cannot be transferred to any spouse, current or future. The paperwork was dense enough to choke a horse. Assignment of patent rights to Hart Family Trust. Exclusive licensing agreement with Northbridge Therapeutics. Escrow instructions for wire transfer. Notice of assignment to the USPTO. Each document another brick in the wall protecting my daughter's future from the Callaway vultures. Ruth had made her own moves during this time, unaware she was playing checkers while I was playing chess. 2 weeks ago, she'd sent her business associate Brandon Holt to accidentally bump into me at the prenatal yoga class she'd insisted I attend. "Eliza?" "What a coincidence," Brandon had said, his smile too white, his handshake too firm. "Ruth mentioned you're working on some medical device. I invest in healthcare startups. Maybe we could talk." I'd played along. describing my sensor in vague terms while Brandon's eyes lit up with dollar signs. I could probably get you $200,000 for the whole thing. He'd offered generously. Cash. No complicated contracts. That's interesting. I'd replied, let me think about it. He'd reported back to Ruth immediately. I know because she called Tyler within the hour, and I heard his side of the conversation from the bathroom where I was throwing up morning sickness in the evening, my body's rebellion against the stress. Mom says Brandon offered to buy Eliza's project. No, she hasn't agreed yet. Yes, I'll talk to her. I know $200,000 would help with your situation. Your situation, not ours. His mother's boutique bankruptcy bleeding into our marriage like ink and water. Marin had laughed when I told her about Brandon's offer. $200,000 for technology Northbridge valued at 9 figures. That's not lowballing, that's theft. Can they cause problems? I'd asked. Let them try. I've filed provisional patents, continuation applications, and international protections. Your IP is locked up tighter than Fort Knox. Plus, she'd smiled. I had my investigator pull some interesting information about Maison Ruth's financial situation. Did you know she's personally guaranteed $3 million in business loans? The reconnaissance went both ways. Ruth had started dropping hints about reimagining my invention for her wellness line. Imagine, she'd said at last Tuesday's dinner. Maison Ruth baby wellness monitors. It has such a ring to it. We could co-brand. Of course. Give you a small percentage. How small? I'd asked, curious about her audacity. Oh, 5% seems fair. After all, we'd be doing all the marketing, taking all the risk. Tyler had nodded along. It's a good opportunity, Eliza. Mom's brand has recognition. In bankruptcy court. Maybe. I'd thought but not said. The final sprint to closing had been brutal. Northbridge's due diligence team wanted everything lab notebooks, prototype iterations, testing data, regulatory pathway assessments. I'd provided it all from a secure laptop hidden in my friend June Parker's apartment, accessing files through VPNs while Ruth thought I was napping. 3 days before the baby shower, Marin had called with urgency in her voice. Northbridge wants to accelerate closing. They've gotten wind that MedTech Solutions is sniffing around the infant monitoring space. We close tomorrow or risk a bidding war. A bidding war could mean more money, I'd pointed out, and more visibility. Your mother-in-law has connections. One whisper in the right country club ear and she'll know everything. We take the $51 million and run, or we risk her interfering. She was right. Ruth's network was vast and gossipy. One mention of a major medical device deal and she'd have her lawyers on it within hours. The closing call had taken place at 6:15 a.m. on the morning of my baby shower, while Tyler showered and Ruth presumably had her hair done. I'd sat in my car in the hospital parking lot. My excuse was a prenatal appointment that didn't exist, and listened as lawyers from 3 firms confirmed the wire transfer. $51 million has been received in escrow, the escrow agent confirmed. Upon receipt of signed documents, funds will be released to Hart Family Trust. I'd signed with a heavy Mont Blanc pen June had given me for luck, each signature a declaration of independence. Eliza Hart, not Eliza Calloway. Never Eliza Calloway on anything that mattered. Congratulations, Dr. Hart, Northbridge's CEO had said. Your technology will save lives. That's the point, I'd replied, thinking of all the babies who would breathe easier, all the parents who would sleep better, and one particular mother-in-law who would choke on her champagne when she learned the truth. The USPTO filing had been electronic, time-stamped at 9:07 a.m. Just as Ruth was arranging gift bags filled with items she'd gotten free from sponsors in exchange for social media influence she didn't have. Now, sitting in that baby shower, watching Ruth perform her elaborate theater of condescension, I felt the weight of the phone in my pocket. 51 million reasons to smile while she called me poor. 51 million shields protecting my daughter from this toxic dynasty of debt and delusion. The humiliation came in waves, each one carefully orchestrated by Ruth like a conductor of cruelty. The gift opening ceremony was her masterpiece of degradation. Let's have Eliza open presents now," Ruth announced, guiding me to a chair in the center of the room like a defendant in a courtroom. "But first, I think we should hear from the mother-to-be, Eliza. Tell everyone how grateful you are for the Calloway family's generosity." The room fell silent. 40 pairs of eyes waited for me to perform my gratitude. Tyler stood by the fireplace, studying his phone with the intensity of a man avoiding eye contact with his conscience. "I'm grateful," I began slowly, "for every lesson this family has taught me." Ruth beamed, missing the edge in my voice. "You see, ladies, we've taken her under our wing. When Tyler brought her home, she didn't even know which fork to use at dinner." Margaret tittered. "Remember when she wore that dress to the charity gala, the one from Target?" "Ross, actually," I corrected, earning laughs that felt like tiny cuts. "Well," Ruth sighed dramatically, "we can't all have Victoria's breeding, or her trust fund." She turned to the room. "Did you know Victoria's family offered to pay for the entire wedding, even after the unpleasantness? The unpleasantness being Tyler choosing me. Though now, watching him shrink into his phone, I wondered if he'd actually chosen anything or just drifted into the path of least resistance that happened to lead to my bed. "Now, Eliza," Ruth continued, "Sarah here has some advice about saving money after the baby comes. She managed to raise 3 children on a teacher's salary. Very inspirational for someone in your situation." Sarah, a kind-faced woman who looked desperately uncomfortable, cleared her throat. "I just think any mother who loves her child makes it work." "Exactly," Ruth clapped. "Love doesn't require money. Although," she stage whispered, "it certainly helps, especially with Tyler's income being so variable." My husband finally looked up. "Mom, what, I'm just being practical? Someone has to be." "Eliza, dear, you really should consider the guest room option we discussed. Free childcare, free rent. You could even help out at one of my boutiques for some pocket money." "The boutiques that are closing." The words escaped before I could stop them. Ruth's face went rigid. "Restructuring. It's called restructuring. Not that you'd understand the complexities of running a business empire." "Empire?" I couldn't help myself. "Is that what we're calling 3 stores and a line of credit you can't pay?" Tyler stepped forward. "Eliza, stop." "Yes, dear. Listen to your husband." Ruth recovered quickly. "This is why we worry about you. So emotional, so ungrateful. We offer you everything, and you throw it in our faces." She picked up a gift, wrapped in silver paper. "Let's see what my friends have generously given to someone who clearly doesn't appreciate it." The gifts were a parade of insults disguised as charity. Used baby clothes, still in good condition. A car seat from someone's garage sale. Coupons for formula because breastfeeding is free if it works out. Each one presented with commentary about budgeting, saving, and making do with less. "Oh, this one's special." Ruth held up a small box. "It's from me." Inside was a silver rattle, tarnished and old. "It was Tyler's. I thought you might like something with actual Calloway history, since you can't afford new things with heritage." Tyler's cousin Jessica had her phone out, recording everything for her Instagram story. "This is so sweet," she narrated to her followers. "Ruth is so generous with the less fortunate." "Tyler," Ruth called out, "why don't you tell everyone about the conversation we had last night, about financial planning?" My husband's jaw tightened. He looked at me, then at his mother, then back at his phone. "Not now, Mom." "Oh, don't be shy. Ladies, Tyler came to me concerned about providing for the baby." We discussed some options for Eliza to contribute more, including that little hobby of hers. "It's not a hobby," I said quietly. "Right, your invention." She used air quotes. "Brandon Holt. You all know Brandon. He's invested in real companies he offered to buy it. Very generous, considering it's just a prototype." $200,000, Margaret added helpfully. He told me at tennis. More than fair for something unproven. Exactly. But Eliza hasn't accepted pride, I suppose, even when Tyler needs help with his business expenses. Mom, enough. Tyler's voice was sharp but weak, like a butter knife trying to cut steel. I'm just trying to help, darling. Someone has to think practically. Babies are expensive, and with Eliza's background— What about my background? I asked, my hand steady on my belly despite the rage building in my chest. Oh dear, we all know. Your father's gambling debts, your mother working 2 jobs, the scholarship you needed for college. There's no shame in being poor, but there's shame in not accepting help when you clearly need it. She'd done her research, twisted it, but done it. Yes, my father had gambled. Yes, my mother had worked herself to the bone. Yes, I'd gotten scholarships, because I'd earned them. Every single one. Speaking of help, Ruth continued, I've arranged for you to stay in our guest room after the birth. Not Tyler. He needs his rest for work, just you and the baby. That way, I can make sure you're doing things properly. Feeding schedules, sleep training, things you wouldn't know without proper upbringing. The room murmured approval. How generous, how thoughtful, how kind of Ruth to take in her son's mistake and fix her. My phone buzzed. Another notification from Marin. All clear, patent assignment recorded, trust funded, you're free. Free. The word tasted like honey in my mouth. Tyler, Ruth commanded, come stand by your wife. Let's get a photo for the announcement. He walked over slowly, his hand finding my shoulder with the weight of obligation, not affection. Just go along with it, he whispered. Please. Like you always do, I whispered back. His grip tightened. Eliza, not here. Then where? Tyler. When do you actually stand up for your wife and child? Ruth's voice cut through our hushed argument. Smile, everyone. This is such a happy occasion, a new baby joining the Calloway family, even if she won't have the advantages other Calloway grandchildren might have had. The camera clicked. Evidence of the moment before everything changed. Ruth in her designer dress, surrounded by her sycophants. Tyler, hollow-eyed and weak. And me, 34 weeks pregnant, holding $51 million in secrets while they documented their own downfall. One more gift, I said suddenly, standing despite my heavy belly. I brought something to share. I walked to the gift table with deliberate slowness, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. The white box sat there, unassuming among the gaudy wrapping paper and recycled gift bags. My fingers didn't tremble as I picked it up. This is a special gift, I said, turning to face the room. Something I've been working on for months. Ruth rolled her eyes. Oh, is this about your little garage project, ladies? Eliza fancies herself an inventor. It's adorable, really. It is about my project. I agreed, opening the box with careful precision. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a leather portfolio embossed with the Hart Family Trust logo. Should I read it aloud, or would you prefer to see it yourself? Ruth. What is this? She snatched the portfolio, her manicured nails clicking against the leather. I watched her face as she opened it. The blood drained first from her cheeks, then her lips. Her hands began to shake as she read the first page. Wire transfer confirmation. $51 million. This is, she stammered. Real, I finished. That's the escrow confirmation for my patent sale to Northbridge Therapeutics. $51 million, deposited this morning at 9:07 a.m., while you were setting up your donation box for my diaper fund. The room exploded in whispers. Margaret grabbed the portfolio from Ruth's frozen hands, her gasp echoing through the space. 51 million. The patent assignment is on page 3. I continued, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. The exclusive licensing agreement on page 7. Oh, and Ruth, Page 12 might interest you particularly. It's the trust documentation showing that no spouse, current or future, can access these funds. Tyler stepped forward, his face white. Eliza, what is this? This is what I was working on while your mother called me poor. This is what I was building while you suggested I should be more grateful. This is my little hobby that Brandon Holt tried to steal for $200,000. You never told me. Tyler's voice cracked. You never asked. You were too busy telling me to sign your mother's postnup. Too busy avoiding conflict. Too busy being Mommy's good boy to be my husband. Ruth found her voice, shrill and desperate. This has to be fake. Some kind of joke. I pulled out my phone, opening the banking app. Would you like to see the account balance? Or should I call David Morrison, Northbridge's CEO? He's probably enjoying his Saturday, but I'm sure he'd confirm the deal for the mother-in-law who thought I wasn't good enough for her son. You deceived us, Ruth sputtered. You lied. I worked. There's a difference. While you were planning ways to control me, I was building something that will save lives. While you were counting Tyler's theoretical inheritance, I was earning my own fortune. Jessica still had her phone out, recording everything. Good. Let the world see Ruth Calloway learning what poverty really looked like, and it was wearing Chanel while drowning in debt. Tyler knew. Ruth turned on her son. You had to know. I didn't, he whispered, staring at me like I was a stranger. Eliza, how could you not tell me? The same way you didn't tell me your mother was bankrupt. The same way you didn't tell me about the calls from her creditors. The same way you didn't tell me you were planning to use my invention to bail her out. That's not page 18, I interrupted, nodding to the portfolio. That's a cease and desist notice that will be served Monday if anyone attempts to use my patent, my name, or my technology in connection with Maison Ruth or any other Calloway family business. Sarah, the teacher who'd been forced to give budget advice, started laughing. It began as a giggle and grew into full-throated joy. Good for you, she said. Good for you, Eliza. You can't do this. Ruth's voice rose to a shriek. We're family. Family shares. Family supports each other. Like you supported me by calling me poor, by trying to steal my work, by attempting to separate me from my husband and child. I was trying to help you. No, you were trying to control me. There's a difference. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter respond with a strong kick. But thank you, Ruth. You taught me exactly what kind of family I don't want to be. Margaret cleared her throat. Ruth, is it true about the boutiques about the bankruptcy? That's none of your business. Ruth snapped. It is if you owe me $30,000 from that investment last year. Margaret replied coldly. The room began to shift, the social tectonic plates realigning as 40 women recalculated Ruth Calloway's actual worth. The whispers turned from shock about my millions to questions about Ruth's debts. This changes nothing, Ruth declared desperately. She's still not one of us. Money doesn't buy class. No, I agreed, gathering my coat and purse. But it does buy freedom. Freedom from you. Freedom from this toxic family dynamic. Freedom to raise my daughter without your poison. Tyler grabbed my arm. Eliza, wait. We need to talk about this. Now you want to talk after months of silence while your mother tortured me, after standing there while she humiliated me in front of everyone. I didn't know it was that bad. Yes, you did. You just chose not to see it. Easier that way. Isn't it let Mommy handle everything while you scroll through your phone? You're my wife. That money is in an irrevocable trust, established before your mother's postnup demand, protected by law from spineless husbands and their bankrupt mothers. Ruth threw the portfolio across the room, pages scattering like expensive snow. Get out of my house. Gladly. I turned to address the room one last time. Ladies, thank you for coming to my baby shower. And Jessica, make sure you tag me in that story. I want a copy for my daughter's baby book. The silence that followed felt like victory. 40 women in designer dresses, speechless. Ruth Calloway. Empire crumbled, standing among the scattered pages of my success. Tyler. Finally looking up from his phone, realizing his meal ticket had just walked out the door. But I didn't walk. Not yet. I had one more thing to say. The Monday after the baby shower. Maren O'Keefe moved like a legal hurricane. By 10:15 a.m., 3 certified letters had been delivered, one to Ruth's home, one to Tyler's office, and one to the headquarters of Maison Ruth. I sat in Maren's conference room at Westgate and Rowan, watching the city 30 floors below while she outlined our strategic assault. The morning sickness had finally passed, replaced by the clear-headed fury of a woman protecting her child. "First order of business," Maren said, sliding documents across the mahogany table. "Cease and desist orders. Ruth Calloway is prohibited from using your name, image, or any reference to your technology in connection with her business ventures. Any violation triggers a $250,000 penalty per instance." "She'll test it," I said. "Let her. We've documented everything. Jessica's Instagram story was particularly helpful, thank you for that foresight. We have Ruth on video claiming credit for your success while simultaneously calling you a charity case." The second document was thicker. Residential lease agreement for Boulder Junction. 3-bedroom unit, 24-hour security, month to month after the first year. "You can move in immediately. And Tyler has no legal claim to your trust assets. Colorado law is clear trusts established before marital agreements supersede them. Plus, we filed the patent assignment before Ruth even presented her postnup. Timing is everything." My phone buzzed. Tyler again. The 37th call since Saturday. I declined it. "Now," Maren continued, "about the counter postnup. This was my favorite part. The document she produced was a work of art, a reverse Uno card in legal form. If Tyler wants to remain married, he signs this. Complete financial separation. No claim to any intellectual property, past or future. No decision-making power over your business ventures. In exchange, you won't pursue spousal support despite his failure to provide during your pregnancy. He'll never sign it. Then he gets the alternative." She produced another folder. Legal separation with cause, abandonment, emotional distress, financial manipulation through his mother. "We have evidence of him discussing your assets with Ruth without your consent. That's breach of fiduciary duty." A knock interrupted us. Maren's assistant entered. "Miss O'Keefe, Ruth Calloway and her attorney are here. They don't have an appointment. But send them in." Maren smiled. "This should be entertaining." Ruth swept in wearing last season's Valentino and this morning's desperation. Her lawyer, a nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting suit, followed like an apology. "This is harassment," Ruth began without preamble. "You can't prevent me from discussing my family." "We can prevent you from profiting off Dr. Hart's innovations." Maren replied coolly. "Sit down, Mrs. Calloway. You're embarrassing yourself." Ruth's lawyer cleared his throat. "My client has a right to—" "Your client," Maren interrupted, "is $3 million in debt with personal guarantees on failing business loans. We know this because it's public record. Your client also attempted to coerce my client into signing over intellectual property rights through emotional manipulation and threats of withdrawal of support. We have witnesses." She pulled out her tablet, swiping to Jessica's story. Ruth's voice filled the room. "When you come from nothing, you can't understand the responsibility of maintaining a certain standard." "That's taken out of context," Ruth protested. The context being you publicly humiliating a pregnant woman while trying to steal her $51 million invention. Maren's smile was sharp. "Let's discuss reality. You can fight this and lose publicly, or you can sign our agreement and salvage what's left of your reputation." "What agreement?" I spoke for the first time. "You stop all contact with me and my child. No visits, no calls, no showing up at medical appointments, no using my name or my success story to prop up your failing business. In exchange, I don't pursue charges for attempted theft of intellectual property. Theft I never— Brandon Holt, I said simply. $200,000 for technology worth $51 million. He was acting as your agent. We have his emails to you discussing the acquisition. Ruth's lawyer paled. We need a moment to confer. You have 5 minutes, Marin said. Then the offer expires and we file civil suits. They huddled in the corner, whispering furiously. I watched Ruth's face cycle through denial, anger, bargaining, and finally, defeat. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out my checkbook. A purchase offer. Purchase. Ruth's voice cracked. For Maison Ruth. $1 for the entire company, including assumption of debts. You'll sign a non-compete preventing you from working in retail for 5 years. Take it, or watch your creditors circle like vultures. This is extortion. This is business. The same kind you've been conducting for years, just better executed. Ruth's hands shook as she looked at the check. $1. The ultimate insult. The final proof that money didn't buy class, but it could buy justice. Tyler won't stand for this, she whispered. Tyler is meeting with his own lawyer right now. Marin informed her. Would you like to know what he's discussing? Whether to file for divorce to protect himself from your debts, since you've been using his name on loan applications without his knowledge. That was news to me. Marin winked. She'd been busy. Sign the papers. Ruth, her lawyer advised quietly. It's the best you'll get. She signed with tears of rage streaming down her face, smearing her carefully applied makeup. Each signature was a surrender, each initial an admission of defeat. Dr. Hart will need the keys to all Maison Ruth properties by 5 p.m., Marin said briskly. Inventory reports by end of business tomorrow. Oh, and Ruth, that vintage Chanel suit you're wearing, it's corporate property now. Dr. Hart will expect it cleaned and returned. Ruth stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're a monster. No, I replied calmly. I'm a mother, and I just ensured my daughter will never be subjected to your poison. That's worth more than $51 million. She stormed out, her lawyer scrambling to follow. The door slammed with the finality of a coffin lid. Marin poured 2 glasses of sparkling water, raising hers in a toast. To new beginnings. 2 endings. I corrected. The right ones. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was June Parker. Moving truck is at your old place. Tyler is sitting on the lawn crying. Should I offer him tissues or just drive by honking? I typed back, neither. Let him sit with his choices. The baby kicked, a strong reminder of why every painful step had been necessary. In 3 weeks, she'd be born into a world where her mother owned her own destiny, where no one could call her poor and mean it, where she'd never have to smile through humiliation for the sake of keeping peace. What's next? Marin asked. Now, I said, standing with difficulty around my massive belly. I go home, my real home, the one I'm paying for myself. The meeting at the Granite and Pine Hotel was scheduled for 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday. I chose the location deliberately neutral ground, public enough to prevent screaming, private enough for devastating revelations. The business center's conference room smelled of leather and lemon polish, the kind of understated luxury Ruth pretended to embody but could never afford. Marin had outdone herself with the research. The manila folders arranged on the conference table contained Ruth Calloway's complete financial autopsy, every bad decision, every hidden debt, every desperate loan documented with surgical precision. Ruth arrived 15 minutes late, a pathetic power play from someone with no power left. Tyler followed her like a beaten dog, his face gaunt, designer stubble unable to hide the stress eating him alive. They sat across from me, Ruth still trying to project authority in her borrowed confidence and knockoff handbag. You wanted to meet. I said simply. We're family. Ruth started, her voice attempting warmth. Surely we can work this out without all these lawyers and threats. Family. I tasted the word like spoiled milk. Is that what you called it when you demanded I contribute $2 million to save your boutiques? Tyler's head snapped toward his mother. You asked her for $2 million. For the family legacy, Ruth said defensively. The Calloway name means something in this city. Let's explore that. I opened the first folder. Maison Ruth, incorporated 8 years ago with a $500,000 loan from First National. Personal guarantee from Ruth Calloway. Current balance $680,000 with penalties and interest. Ruth's face went rigid. How did you? Second loan, Mountain West Bank, $300,000 for expansion. Defaulted 4 months ago. Currently in pre-litigation. I turned the page. Third loan, private lender, Marcus Zhao, $1.2 million at 18% interest. Shall I continue? Stop. Tyler whispered. Mom, is this true? Then there's the creative financing, I continued, pulling out another document. Using Tyler's name and social security number on applications without his knowledge. That's fraud. Ruth, federal crime, 7 years minimum. Tyler stood abruptly, his chair scraping. You used my name. For the family, Ruth shrieked. Everything I did was for you. No. I corrected. Everything you did was for your image. The boutiques were hemorrhaging money from day one. But admitting failure, that would mean admitting you're just as poor as you accused me of being. I placed 2 envelopes on the table. Option 1, Ruth signs over all remaining assets and disappears. 5-year non-compete. No contact with my daughter. Ever. Tyler gets to keep his credit rating. Barely. And option 2, Tyler asked, his voice hollow. Criminal charges, fraud, identity theft, attempted extortion regarding my patent. Ruth goes to prison. You're named as co-conspirator unless you cooperate with prosecutors. You wouldn't? Ruth gasped. I'm protecting my daughter from a grandmother who would steal her college fund to maintain appearances. Yes, I would. Tyler slumped in his chair. How much of my life was a lie? All of it. I said, not unkindly. Your mother built a house of cards and convinced you it was a mansion. The country club membership 3 months behind. The Cherry Creek house second mortgage she forged your signature on. The Mercedes leased under your name without your knowledge. I pulled out my laptop, opening a spreadsheet. Total debt under Tyler's name $4.7 million, under Ruth's $6.3 million, combined $11 million. We could declare bankruptcy, Ruth said desperately. You could, but the fraud charges remain. And bankruptcy means everyone knows. Every country club friend, every society page, every person you've looked down on for being poor. The silence stretched until it hummed with tension. Finally, I opened the second envelope. Or there's this. I placed a single document on the table. Purchase agreement for Maison Ruth and all associated debts. Buyer Hart Enterprises LLC. Purchase price $1. You already showed me this. Ruth spat. Read section 4. Her eyes scanned the page, widening. You'll pay off the debts. Structured over 5 years, with conditions. You disappear completely. Move to another state. No contact with Denver society. No mention of the Calloway name in any business venture. You violate any term. The debts revert to you immediately with interest. Why? Tyler asked. Why would you do this? Because I'm not cruel, just practical. Your mother destroyed means nothing to my daughter. But a grandmother in prison, that's a shadow that follows. This way, she vanishes cleanly. Ruth's hands shook as she read, You're buying my life. I'm buying my daughter's freedom from your toxicity. $1 feels like overpaying, honestly. And me? Tyler asked. What happens to me? I looked at my soon-to-be ex-husband, this weak man who'd stood by while his mother savaged me, who'd chosen comfort over courage every single time. You get a choice. Sign the divorce papers, walk away clean with your debts cleared, and rebuild your life. Or stay married to someone who will never trust you again, never respect you, never forget how you failed to protect your pregnant wife from your mother's abuse. Eliza, You stood there. I cut him off. While she called me poor, while she tried to steal my work, while she humiliated me in front of 40 people, you stood there. His face crumpled. I didn't know how to stop her. Mom, stop. 2 words. That's all it would have taken. Ruth suddenly laughed, high and hysterical. You think you've won. You think money makes you better than us. No, I replied calmly, but it makes me free from you, and that's priceless. I stood, my belly making the movement graceless but determined. You have 24 hours to decide. Marin will be waiting for your call. You're destroying everything, Ruth screamed. The Calloway legacy. The Calloway legacy is debt, lies, and cruelty wrapped in designer clothing you couldn't afford. I'm not destroying it. I'm documenting it. I pulled out my phone, showing them an email. Jessica's Instagram story went viral. By the way, 3 million views. Mother-in-law calls pregnant daughter-in-law poor. Finds out she has 51 million. The comments are illuminating. Ruth grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it back. My favorite comment, money talks, wealth whispers, but class can't be bought. That daughter-in-law has all 3. Tyler signed the divorce papers right there, his signature shaky but legible. I'm sorry, Eliza, for everything. I know, I said, meaning it, but sorry doesn't undo the damage. Ruth held out longer, until Marin arrived with a forensic accountant who detailed exactly how many criminal charges could be filed. The pen shook in her hand as she signed away everything her business, her reputation, her relationship with her unborn grandchild. She'll ask about you one day, Ruth said, trying one last manipulation. What will you tell her about her grandmother? The truth, that you taught me exactly what kind of mother never to be. The final confrontation came 3 weeks before my due date. Ruth had violated the agreement within 72 hours, telling anyone who'd listen that she was the inspiration behind my success. The cease and desist had been ignored. Time for the nuclear option. I'd booked the conference room at the Four Seasons, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. When Ruth arrived with Tyler and her bargain basement lawyer, she found Marin, 2 forensic accountants, and a court reporter. But the real surprise was the projection screen showing her greatest hits security footage from my garage workspace at 3:45 a.m. while I soldered circuits, pregnant and alone. Email timestamps showing my negotiations with Northbridge while she planned her boutique liquidation. The coup de grace, a recorded call where she'd offered Brandon Holt a finder's fee to acquire that little toy Eliza's playing with. $250,000 per violation. Marin announced, "You've mentioned Dr. Hart's invention 6 times publicly." "That's $1.5 million in penalties." Ruth ripped the papers in half. "You can't prove damages." I clicked to the next slide screenshots of messages from potential investors who'd withdrawn after Ruth claimed credit for my work. "Tortious interference. Add another $3 million. Mom, just stop." Tyler begged. He looked broken, aged 10 years in 3 weeks. "She stole everything from us," Ruth screamed. "No." I stood, hand on my belly where my daughter performed acrobatics. "I built everything while you tried to steal it." I opened my laptop, projecting one final document. "This is a purchase order from Seattle Children's Hospital. 40,000 units of my sensors. Then Johns Hopkins, another 60,000. Stanford Children's, 90,000. Each slide showed another contract, another validation that my work would save lives while Ruth's boutiques had only fed vanity. "You want to know what poor really is?" "Ruth," I asked quietly. "Poor is having everything, the house, the name, the connections, and still being so empty inside that you need to destroy others to feel valuable." The court reporter typed every word, evidence for the criminal case Maureen was building. "Please," Ruth whispered, finally broken. "I have nothing left." "You have exactly what you gave me: judgment, cruelty, and condescension, except I turned mine into fuel. You just let yours burn you alive. I pulled out the final document. Sign this, disappear completely, and the criminal charges stay sealed, refuse, and by Monday morning, everyone in Denver will know exactly who Ruth Calloway really is. She signed with tears streaming down her face, real ones this time. Not the performed emotions of her society act. Each signature was another bar in the cage she'd built herself. Tyler stood to leave, then turned back. The baby. Can I? No. The word was gentle but final. You made your choice every time you stayed silent. She deserves better than a father who won't fight for her. He nodded, understanding that some bridges, once burned, stay ash. As they filed out, Ruth turned one last time. You've become just like me, cruel, calculating. No, I corrected. I've become everything you pretended to be. Successful, strategic, strong. The difference is, I built it myself instead of tearing others down to fake it. The door closed with a whisper, not a bang. Endings rarely announce themselves with drama. They arrive in signatures and silence. 6 hours later, my water broke. Charlotte Rose Hart was born at 7:23 a.m., screaming her arrival into a world where her mother owned her destiny. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of perfect possibility, wearing a hospital bracelet that said Hart, not Calloway. June held my hand through labor while Tyler sat in a bar across town, texting apologies I'd never read. Ruth was already packing, her Denver chapter closed by court order and public humiliation. As I held Charlotte, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, I whispered promises she'd never question her worth, never beg for respect, never shrink herself to fit someone else's comfort. My phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. The first royalty payment from Northbridge had arrived $3.7 million for the first quarter. By the time Charlotte could walk, the sensors would be in every NICU in America. By the time she could talk, they'd be saving lives globally. Your grandmother called me poor, I told my sleeping daughter, but she taught me the most valuable lesson. Wealth isn't what you have, it's what you build. And baby girl, we're going to build empires. The sunrise painted the hospital room gold, Denver sprawling below us like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. In my arms, Charlotte stirred, her eyes opening briefly her father's shape but filled with her mother's fight. I thought about Ruth, probably crying in her empty mansion, surrounded by things she couldn't afford and debts she couldn't pay. About Tyler, weak and aimless, finally free from his mother but lost without her manipulation to rebel against. They'd given me their worst, and I'd transformed it into my best. The nurse came in to check our vitals. Beautiful baby. Dad coming by later. No, I said simply. We're complete as we are. She smiled knowingly. Good for you, Mama. Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, not the ones we're born into. Charlotte yawned. A tiny, perfect O of possibility. In 3 days, we'd go home to our apartment in Boulder, where no one would judge our worth by our zip code or our last name, where the garage held camping gear instead of secret laboratories, where every dollar was earned, not inherited or manipulated. My phone lit up with messages. Northbridge announcing the FDA fast-track approval, Marin confirming Ruth had vacated Denver, Tyler's lawyer acknowledging receipt of divorce papers. Each notification another brick in the fortress I'd built around my daughter's future. But the last message made me smile. Jessica, Ruth's spy turned unexpected ally, saw everything, posted the whole truth. Ruth Calloway is trending, not in a good way. You're my hero. I kissed Charlotte's forehead, inhaling her perfect newborn scent. Your grandmother was right about one thing, baby girl. I did come from nothing, but watch what I build from here. The hospital bill would be covered by insurance, real insurance, that I'd purchased myself. The birth certificate would list only one parent, but that parent had enough love and resources for 2. The future stretched ahead, unlimited and ours alone. Ruth had called me poor at my baby shower. Today, holding 51 million in assets and infinite possibilities in my arms, I'd never felt richer. Not because of the money, though, that helped, but because I'd bought the one thing Ruth never could: freedom from needing anyone's approval but my own. "Welcome to the world, Charlotte Rose," I whispered, "where your mother went from poor to powerful, and you'll never have to prove your worth to anyone." The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story of sweet revenge resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Did Ruth get what she deserved? What would you have done in Eliza's situation? Your comments keep these stories coming, and I read every single one. Until next time, remember, the best revenge is massive success.